Reference number 29 once more. Page 13, reference number 29. Establishing how the omniscient one traverses along the path to become the reliable guide through the proper sequence or the forward sequence. Forward sequence, proper sequence, they mean the same. Proper or the forward. Forward sequence has two parts. How from the favorable methods in wisdom, the results in the form of two benefits for self and others arise. Number two, how the Buddha as the reliable guide arose or guide is established from these factors. Two. Reference number 30. Now we are dealing with the first point. The first one, which is how from the favorable method in wisdom, the results in the form of two benefits for self and others arise. So this has four parts. Identifying great compassion as a wholesome intention. Okay, first identifying this journey of achieving, becoming the reliable guide. What is the cause? Initial trigger was the great compassion. Identifying great compassion as a wholesome intention. The intention, great compassion. Number two, how the wholesome intention of great compassion gives rise to the wholesome action, which is indicated by the teacher. That is the wisdom of selflessness or the wisdom of emptiness. Okay, not just for information. I mentioned here wisdom of selflessness. And if you could remember what Vichen said was wisdom of emptiness. The point is that why the selflessness is indicated here is that the chapter 2 is written primarily in the context of the Sautrantika and Chittamatra philosophy. More inclined towards Sautrantika school. So philosophy-wise, it is more from the Southern school. Sautrantika school does not really talk about emptiness as much. We do find a mention of the word emptiness, but it's not so commonly used. They speak about the selflessness most of the time. So it says the wisdom of selflessness. Now, our job is so this text is like the container and the content, the wisdom of selflessness, wisdom of emptiness, we must add from Nagarjuna's text. Okay, number 3. How the wholesome action of teacher, which is the wisdom of selflessness, gives rise to the Sugata, one gone to bliss or favorable benefit to the self. Sugata is the favorable benefit primarily for the self. Number 4. How from Sugata arises. So keep this in mind, arises. This we discuss what? Has two connotations. One is that it is a factor or that is the cause, that is the reason. How the Sugata serves as reason for the protector to be given rise to, or the protector come into being of the protector, which is the favorable benefit for others. Okay, look, it's so comprehensively presented. Reference number 31. First, identifying the wholesome intent of great compassion has two parts. Okay, now look. So this text is so unique in ways that usually we talk about compassion. For example, say in Tibet, His Holiness the Dalai Lama oftentimes says that in Tibet, say all these debates are not really there because there were no opponents. Everybody just followed Buddhism straight away. So the great compassion, yes, great compassion. No, so in those days, like Acharya Dharmakirti this time, look at the debate, even on great compassion. Right? So what are the debates? Let's see. Reference number 31 first. Identifying the wholesome intent of great compassion has two parts. One, indicating the great compassion as the initial cause of omniscience. First, indicating that the great compassion is the initial cause. So, from great compassion, then it starts. This is the beginning of the cause for the omniscience or the enlightenment, Buddhahood. Number 2, rejecting the qualm that doubts the existence of great compassion. So then, the opponents, they come, say that Great compassion, you are talking about great compassion, but it's not possible, right? So nowadays, in fact, nowadays, I meet with thinkers, very good thinkers, physicists, neuroscientists. I meet with them, and often they say that you talk about enlightened business. This is not really possible. They just openly say this. So look, in those days, this is what it said. Rejection, the qualm meaning the doubt or the argument or the issue raised that doubts the existence of great compassion. That they said that great compassion is doubtful. Whether or not it is really there is doubtful. It's not really possible. So these debates were coming in those days. So we see that even the great compassion, how that is possible, how that is to be cultivated, all these things rationally is going to be studied here. So for example, in Lamrim, we never studied these things. In Lamrim, just take for granted compassion. Okay, the path for the small scope person, middle scope person, great scope person. Great scope person, then the sevenfold causative method and the method of equalizing and exchanging. And the method of the sevenfold causative method, what are they? Remember all beings those one's mothers. Then what? Taken for granted. And at the most, remember all beings as one's mothers, how everyone is one's mothers. Then a little bit of explanation comes, and finish, we switch to the second point. Right? Compassion we never discuss. Just take for granted that this is what we have to practice. Right? Now here, all these are being rationally given to us. Rationally given, which is so precious. This gives us the confidence that, wow, the Buddha's teaching is so precious. So precious. Okay. Reference number 32. First, indicating the great compassion as the initial cause of omniscient mind. So the root text reads, now the root text. Root text says, compassion as the cause arises through familiarization. Compassion is possible. Great compassion. Compassion here is not just the ordinary compassion, but great compassion. Great compassion is possible through what? Great compassion as the cause for omniscience, as the cause for becoming a reliable guide, is possible through familiarization. Right? What is the next question? What could be your next question? Any question? No question. Oh, wow. No question. Okay. How to familiarize? That's easy. How to familiarize is very easy. Sevenfold and the method of equalize. Two methods.
Other than familiarization is other
No. Symbol. So what questions? Okay, we need to learn the skills. No. Compassion, don't say why. Compassion is there. The question is, compassion is the cause, as the cause is something which can arise through familiarization. We are not talking about anything else. Now, we can talk about other things, but compassion is discussed. If you want to say, why only compassion, then that takes us to a different discussion. But with this, what other questions can come? Oh, that's easy. How is the cause of the omniscience? That's easy. For example, how the mother of, say, like one child, how the mother of the 10 children, mother of the 10 children is much more energetic, generally speaking. Much more energetic because she feels the more responsibility as opposed to the mother of the one child. Right? Okay, yes, it is existent because it comes from familiarization. The next question would be, how long should we be familiarized? 1 day? How long should we familiarize? Great compassion. 1 day? Or 2 days? Or 7 days? Or 7 days? Or 1 life? Or many lifetimes? Oh, that's quite a question. Many lifetimes. How do you know that there's many lifetimes? Right? All these questions come up. Okay, let's see. Compassion as a cause arises through familiarization. Right? How? That's easy. How to familiarize? That's easy. Right? How to familiarize is easy, but how long? How long should that be practiced? For some people, generally speaking, it takes a few lifetimes. But those who are familiarized with this practice from past lives, they could be exception. Otherwise, for some people, it can take many lifetimes. How do you know there's many lifetimes? This next question. Then it becomes a very serious question. Okay. Compassion is a cause arises through familiarization. Okay, first, what we need to also keep in mind, this is very important. While there's a rigorous debates and discussions happening, at the same time, in terms of the practice of compassion, what it says is that indicating the great compassion as the initial cause. So as Pavani picked up, that how is it the initial cause? Okay, this is a little digression. How is it the initial cause? Okay, what the Buddha said what the Buddha taught in one of the sutras, Sutra Unraveling the Intention. Sutra Unraveling the Intention. There the Buddha said that the Bodhisattvas may not engage in many practices. If they engage in one practice, that will attract all the good qualities in the palms of the Bodhisattva. And the Buddha rhetorically asked the question, what is that one thing? And the Buddha answered, it's the great compassion. Let me say this again. Buddha, in the Sutra Unraveling the Intention. In this Sutra Unraveling the Intention, in this Sutra, what the Buddha taught is that the Bodhisattvas may not engage in many practices. If they engage in one practice, this will attract all good qualities in the palms of their hands. And the Buddha rhetorically asked the question, what is that one practice? And the Buddha answered, it's the great compassion. Okay, so look, the great compassion is so precious. Somehow, see how much we can practice this great compassion. If you practice this, if we practice, not just you, if we practice this is a wonderful gift. One, say many of the unnecessary problems will be resolved. We will see things, otherwise small things we see as very significant, something which is really disturbing. No, nothing. It's, even very deep problematic issues can be resolved very easily with compassion. Okay, just one example. What happened was that Tibet House, it was several years ago, I think about 5 or 6 years ago. We organized a big program, and we were inviting speakers from all over India. And there was one speaker, the secretary was taking the charge, and I was telling her who to invite. And then all was settled. Then the program was already started. And the next day program, one of the speakers, a neuroscientist, the neuroscience and Buddhist psychology the meeting that was a part of the big program, the next day. And suddenly the secretary came to me, to my office, with so much attention. I said, what happened to you? She said that I made a blunder. I said, what blunder did you make? She said that now the neuroscientist could not come tomorrow. I said, why? Because I gave him the wrong date. And the program, all invitation, everything gone, everywhere. So now he could not come. And he was the key person. From the neuroscience, he was the key person. He could not come. Then he was literally shaking and, becoming so anxious and like this. I said that, why should you be intense? Why should you be intense? These problems happen, Tibet House has nothing. These problems happen even in UNO. UNO, they make such mistakes. What is Tibet House as compared to UNO? It's nothing, right? So this can be resolved. What you have been doing, you have to do your best. You have to do your best. Mistakes can happen. Only those people who do good works, they will make mistakes. If you don't move this table here and there, this will never fall. Only if you move this table, then it can fall, right? Which fall means somebody's at least attempting, working. Somebody's at least bothered over this. Who cares, right? This will never fall. Right? So therefore, only somebody who does something good can potentially make mistakes. So what's wrong with it? We all have to grow like this. We make mistakes, we grow, right? And instantly we change the program. So what was otherwise to be happening day after was shift to and then I called the scientist. I called him because he is my personal friend. I called him. I said, is it possible that you can come tomorrow? We can book a fresh flight ticket for you. He said, no. I said, why? I have to attend I have to supervise a very important examination. I cannot. This is your office. They made the mistake. The neuroscientist was speaking. Then I said, never mind, it doesn't matter. If you cannot change it, it's fine. I'm just seeing if it's possible. Then it's not possible. Then what I said, the 2 days later program is switched to tomorrow because all the people were already there. And tomorrow's program will switch to the next day, the next day. We switch it on the spot. And then there's some speakers, there's a problem here or there. We say, may somebody who's not a speaker made a speaker the next day. Everything's possible. With compassion, everything is possible. So whereas, no, what a mistake you made, it's a blunder. A small thing you can make it as a huge, right? Say, why did you keep the flower here? It should be on the table here, right? If you keep it on the table, it's blocking my view. Why you keep it there? It should be there. When you don't love the person, when you don't have the affection for the person, when you don't have the compassion for the person, anything the person does, you will see mistake in it. And meanwhile, you are not happy. Other person is not happy. When the other person is not happy, how can the other person smile at you? When the other person does not smile, you are not smiling. Why are you not smiling at you? Again, this is a problem. How can the other person smile when the other person is scared of you? How can the other person smile at you? Without love and affection, this is a problem for others, for yourself. Okay, so the compassion is so precious. We can study all these intricacies of the compassion, how to cultivate, why to cultivate, and then how long to cultivate, and then the reincarnation. All these we can study, but we have to take steps. We have to take steps. We have to practice it. Without practicing it, then if we keep studying, of course the study itself is so precious. Study itself is so precious, but after studying this, finally we have to take steps. Studying and not studying at all. Studying is far better even though you don't practice. Studying with practice, studying without practice. Studying with practice is far, far better. Not only for the world, for you. So we all want happiness for yourself. We all want to get rid of your fears. If that is what we want, we have to practice compassion, which is so precious. It's not just a spirituality. People say that, oh, spirituality, right? Okay, so say recently in the Israel, I was invited to be one of the speakers for a conference on perspectives on consciousness. So it's about the neuroscience and the psychologists and also the Buddhist, the psychology. So I was there. And some people, when they saw me as a spiritual person, said, okay, you came here. What are you going to present? He's going something very, something very soft, nothing to do with academic. Right? This is it's so rich. What is the compassion? Right? It's so rich discussion. Meanwhile, these rich discussions, if we go there, we see it's extremely rich discussions. Meanwhile, if we don't practice it, then we will never feel that compassion. If we don't feel that compassion, then somehow we will lead through the same miserable life. So compassion is the initial cause of the dawn of the happiness. Compassion is the dawn of the happiness. That is so precious. We have to practice it. And how to practice it? And these two beautiful methods were taught by the Indian masters, eventually coming down to Lama Selingpa and Lama Atisha. So this is what we have inherited. We have to practice these two. The sevenfold course of a method and the method of equalizing the stage itself is so precious. I personally, to be very honest, I'm trying my best to practice these two for so many years. I personally have been practicing this for so many years. In this life, I'm a very skeptic person, to be very honest. Since my childhood, like age 16, 17, I'm a very skeptic person. In this life, today if somebody tells me, what made you to survive as a Buddhist? I would say that the wisdom of emptiness and bodhicitta. These two are something so precious which nowhere you can see. Nowhere you can see this. wisdom of emptiness. It gives you such a fearlessness. But everybody seeks the fearlessness. Nobody seeks to live in fear. And this wisdom of emptiness gives you the fearlessness. It doesn't mean that I realize emptiness. But whatever little that I've studied from my teachers, whatever little that I practice, I could feel that this is what gives you the fearlessness. And compassion is so beautiful. The most beautiful mind that can see in this universe is the compassion. This is the most beautiful mind. Wisdom of emptiness is the most fearless mind. It's not the most beautiful mind. Bodhicitta, compassion, is the most beautiful mind. Wisdom of emptiness, you just feel this. You're deeply there. People can see you as a very confident person. But people may not necessarily be what do you call it? What's that English word? Meld. This meld. It will not happen. Whereas if you practice compassion, unconditional love for everyone, no matter what, what the other person is, what ethnicity, what gender, what religion, it doesn't matter. The fact that the person, doesn't want fear, the fact that the person wants infinite happiness, this is a fact. We are all common. On that basis, you cultivate the love and affection. You cultivate it. Even a glimpse of that experience, even a glimpse of this experience will make you just feel like melting. It's so tender and beautiful mind, most beautiful mind in this universe. So this is something we have to practice. If we don't practice, we will never feel that wonder. So this omniscience, we're talking about omniscience, initial cause, initial trigger is the great compassion. So this is something, and that, say, in many places, even if you have some inkling of great compassion, I have to practice it, but there's no source. What to practice, how to practice, you have no source. But here, the two beautiful methods are taught from Arya Nagarjuna down, from Arya Asanga down. All these methods are beautifully there. This is so beautiful practice. And just practice it. You feel that this is the most beautiful mind. Just not beautiful yourself. You can feel it and you just feel yourself so relaxed. All the tension dissolves. And anybody around you, they just feel like, sitting, they don't feel like going away from you. It's so beautiful mind. This is something we have to practice for your own good. Just experiment it. Experiment it. Once you start to feel it, once you start to feel this love flowing, okay, just for your information, why I'm emphasizing so much on this part is finally we have to take some steps. Steps. Without taking steps, we'll never reach there. Gati is all the steps. We have to take steps. As I first initially joined the monastery, the Institute of Buddhist Dialectics, then I was so fascinated. Of course, I heard about bodhicitta, wisdom, and since long time ago, since my childhood. Then in the monastery, is more going to be like very systematized, formal. I was so keen. The study of the bodhicitta was supposed to be on the third year. And just from the first year, I started to inquire what is bodhicitta, how to practice, and so forth. And then I started practicing since from the day, not really day one, from the first year I started practicing it. And then I could see the challenge. It's not easy. So finally, with all these 7 steps, finally, what is the step number 7? Anybody? Bodhicitta, right? Step, remember all beings are one's mothers, remember their kindness, obeying their kindness, then seeing the beings light with great compassion, with great affection, great compassion, altruism, bodhicitta. Steps in bodhicitta. What is bodhicitta? May I become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. When it comes to this point, may I become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings, there was one person who was terribly, with whom I have a terrible relationship since my childhood. Very terrible relationship. The moment I see this person's face, except for this person, may I become Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings, except for this person. So it's so difficult, practice so difficult. Yet, then I said, no, except for this person means this is not bodhicitta in the first place. This is not at all the practice of bodhicitta. Bodhicitta means to be awakened for all beings. This is not bodhicitta. Oh no, I want bodhicitta. Which means you cannot say except for this person. Oh yes. Then again the person's face comes and again, automatic except for this person. right? And practice. And then eventually, so this person is not a problem. Okay, for all beings. So it's somewhat coming. Then they just still continue to practice. And at one point, and this person is literally very complicated. Very complicated. Not only with me, with all the people around that person. Very complicated. And then the moment I meet with my relatives, friends and so forth, again the discussion come around this person. Nobody likes this person, just backbiting. Then at one point, the moment I see that the people start to backbite this person, I feel so disturbed. The feeling, just my mind flows towards that person in defense of this person. Then I feel that, okay, I'm so happy that at least in this life, although it is not really to the level of great compassion, still, I should be able to break the barrier. Otherwise, which is a great hindrance for cultivating bodhicitta. I'm able to break that. I feel so close to that person. I'm in my defense. I just spontaneously jump to defend the person when other people, they backbite this person or feel they're unhappy with that person. So the effect is there. Transformation is there. What I'm saying, if you practice, the transformation is bound to happen. It's not that some people are gifted, some people are less gifted. No, everybody can undergo this transformation. And then when you feel it, it's beautiful. It's extremely beautiful. This mind of compassion for others. Not just compassion in general, but the unconditional love towards others. So when you feel it, of course, I'm still just nothing. But the little attempt that I made for over these many years, I feel that it's so beautiful. And if somebody tells me, do you really have the bodhicitta or the great compassion now? I would say no. But still, I can be very confident to say that this mind of bodhicitta is the most beautiful mind in its world. No other mind is more beautiful than this bodhicitta. And the wisdom of emptiness is the most fearless mind, guaranteed. It doesn't mean that I realize emptiness. From what little I've studied, what little I've attempted to practice, from there I could feel that this is the most fearless mind. So who wants fearlessness? Everybody. Who wants the beautiful state of mind? Who wants the infinite happiness? Everybody. So the wisdom of emptiness will give you the fearlessness, and the bodhicitta will give you the infinite happiness. This is it. So therefore we have to take steps. Okay. Page 14, stanza 36a. Compassion as the cause arises through familiarization, which means that we have to familiarize in this compassion. So with this, attached to this is many debates or discussions. So the questions coming up. Reference number 33. Second, rejecting the qualm that the doubts, qualm, or the, okay, what exactly is qualm? Anybody? What is this qualm? Huh? Doubt, right? Doubt or question. Doubt or question. Said, rejecting the qualm that doubts the existence of great compassion. This has two parts. Number one, rejecting that great compassion cannot be trained over many lifetimes. So I said, great compassion arises through familiarization. What is the question attached to this? What's the question? For how long should we practice it? Oh, you might have to practice for a few lifetimes. Then what is the next question? How do you know that there are few lifetimes? There are many lifetimes, right? How do you know that? Okay, so saying that rejecting the great compassion cannot be trained over many lifetimes, because there's no many lifetimes. There's only one lifetime, right? Okay, some people, they are very direct. They say that, okay, I believe in only one life. Be happy. Right? This is only life. Okay, recently I had a discussion. This is a discussion with a physicist in Israel. A brilliant physicist in Israel. Okay, did I mention this here? I mentioned it. About the wife. Wife is a Buddhist. Yes, right? Okay, some say no, they want to hear second time. Okay, what happened was that we were on the dining table. And then the wife was just letting me speak because she cannot convince the husband, who is a physicist. She cannot convince her, right? And she says something, he will say something more strong with reasons, right? So she cannot convince the husband. So she wants me to speak. How, Geshe, he's saying like this, no, Geshe, how can we become our rebirth? Right? I thought that she's really interested. Oh, this is a topic. If you're really interested, we have to study Pramanavartika. Our chance pushes aside. She said, but there are people. There are people who said that I'm just happy with this life. Next life, no next life. It's a full stop. This is it. But there are people who say like this. So how can you convince? Actually, she was referring to the husband. Right? And still, I did not understand what she was referring to. So I said, very naively, I said, okay, yeah, that's true. There are many people like this, and push. Again, she was pushing. Then she realized, now Geshe will not understand. He's the one. Right? He's the one. He's the one. Then I turned to him, right? And he's a great physicist. He's a great thinker. He will not say, yes, Geshe. No, he will not say this, right? So it's a lunchtime, it's a dinner time. It's a very short time. It's going to be a very long discussion. So I sense that she's telling all these things for me to speak, to convince him. And he's not easy to be convinced. He's a physicist. He's a thinker. So one thing that made me a little happy was that because I met many scientists, many neuroscientists. Neuroscientists, I try to convince the person. The moment it touched the faith, blind faith, the scientists become angry. But when it becomes angry, finish. No way of discussion. Better say, okay, sorry. Right? Okay, sorry. Yes, you are right. What you said is right. And say you said is right and finish. Just stop there. The moment the person feels offended, no way for discussion, further discussion. So whereas this scientist, just the night before, about the piano, he said very confidently that initially it was the awareness. With awareness, you know, you have to have the awareness which to press. And then once you are very trained, it's not awareness. There's no awareness there. It's just automatic operation. Very confident he's saying this. And then his wife has to say, yes, yes, because she cannot convince him. So I thought that, then I told him directly. And then my two Indian friends, oh, some of you know that. The Vichen, Man, and who were there from last year? Yen, from last year, the two Indian friends, they were also there with me. Two of them are there, then the lady and the scientists. But the five of us are there. Yes. So, the moment he started this discussion, this automatic, no awareness, very confident he was saying. And that too, he was not saying out of faith, some out of experience he was saying this. Then I just said that now I can see that this discussion is going to take 2 hours. I said, right there, I said it. He did not sense what I was saying. Because what he's saying, if I don't give the reply, he would think that this is the truth. But this is not the truth. It's a very subtle understanding, very good understanding, but it's not the final understanding. So I thought that, okay, now it will take another 2 hours, I can see that. I said. And then I have to speak something. If I don't speak something, then all the people, they think that what he said is correct. No awareness, which means that what we're doing is everything is automatic. Right? It's just a brain, no mind. It's just automatic. Then where's the reincarnation? No reincarnation. Implicitly, when you say it's automatic, it's purely done by the brain, nothing to do with awareness, means that you are implicitly saying that there is no rebirth. Implicitly. So that is a very important topic, very important discussion. If I don't say something, while I've studied this for the last many years, 30 years I studied this, and still if I'm not able to help somebody who is very honestly presenting his or her the thoughts, which is not going in the proper track, then I'm not really the right person. I'm not really being kind. I should speak, even though there may be going to be a little heated debate, never mind, right? Although I do not really want to go too much into these debates and so forth, because they say sometimes the people can offend it. So I started to try to speak, and then he was just attentively listening, and he got sense that, okay, what I thought is so automatic, purely by the brain, no awareness, is actually not no awareness. There is awareness there. He was convinced. He did not say anything. Then the next day, we met. Then he came from his piano training. And he said that, I told the teacher who teaches him the piano, that I met a Buddhist monk and 2 Indian guys. And I described to him that this monk is very cute and also smart. Why smart? Because the last night he was convinced that what he, for the last many days, what he thought as automatic is actually not automatic, this awareness. A very fast awareness. He learned that. So he sensed that this is so precious. This is not from me, it's from this book, Pramanavartika. He did not know that there's this treasure there behind me, this treasure which I learned, right? So from this I was speaking. So that he did not know, and he thought that he has, of course, he met with so many people, and he knew that he is just way, way, way above average in terms of the intelligence. He knows that. And then now today he sees that somebody is speaking something who convinced him, something very different. So that's all coming from this book, Pramanavartika, right? Okay, so then the next day on the table, the wife was saying, some people they are saying like this, there's no rebirth and so forth. Then I said, yeah, there are, of course. We can't expect everybody to follow what you're saying. Then he's the one. Right? So meaning, okay, now you have to speak. Okay, I looked at him, and he was also looking at me. Like this. Okay. Because this is relevant to this topic, I'm going to say this, right? So this is very relevant. Then how to begin, right? Very serious or very light? No, this is a very serious topic. I cannot start it light. Very serious topic. Serious topic means everybody pin drop silence. Actually, it's dinner time. It's not for pin drop silence. Then everybody's pin drop silence. Even 2 of them know that now there's going to be this discussion, heated discussion. The 2 of my Indian friends. And the wife is so happy. Now, okay, so let us see what is happening there. So I began, okay, that's fine, right? And he said that, then he said that, this is my personal view, he said, this is my personal view. That I don't believe, if somebody believes in rebirth, that's fine, this is his or her belief. I don't believe in rebirth, it's only, say, the brain, that's it. That's it. So your life, this one life, that's it, this is my belief. Then I said that, okay, that's fine. But, what is the difference? What is the difference between human being and a dog? Say, if you see that this is only life, what the brain does, that's it. There's no the rebirth. Nothing really goes to the next life. Be happy this life. What's the difference between us, the human beings, and you as the human being, and a dog? Dog also in the morning, wake up, and go to look for food. You also wake up, oh, it's time for my job, it's time for my work, you go to the office. And busy. And very tired, deadlines and so forth. And then by the time it's like, 5, 6, 7 in some cases, 7, you're so tired, and then you go home, and to relax yourself, you watch some, little bit of television. That makes you even more tired. And then you say, okay, I'll quickly munch something, and then you go to bed. Again, next day, you go. What's the difference between a dog and a human being? I said, human beings have this brilliant brain, brilliant mind. Is this how we should lead a life? There must be something different. Human beings should prove that you are different from the dogs. Dogs also get some food. Dogs also sleep. Dogs also get up It's the same thing. What's the difference? One. Number two, you, as the brilliant, amongst the human beings, you have a brilliant mind. Why not you using this brilliant mind? How to use this brilliant mind? This is the question. Is what we see, what we feel. You ask these, what I'm seeing, are they true? This is what you can do with it, which the dogs cannot do. Why don't you use this faculty? What I'm seeing, is it the reality? This is what the human beings can ask. Dogs cannot ask. If you ask these questions, only then you prove yourself as a human being. Amongst the human beings, it's not that everybody is smart. Only few are smart. You are one of them. Why don't you use that smartness? I said it. Then, it lays the ground. So he's listening. And the lady is very happy. Then I said that, okay, look. This human birth, everybody can see it. The next birth, rebirth, whether there is or there is not, it is wrong to believe that there is rebirth. It is equally wrong to believe that there is no rebirth. Just as it is blind faith to believe without any reasoning the rebirth, it is also blind faith not to believe in rebirth, to reject rebirth. That is also blind faith. What reasons do you have to say that rebirth is not there? One. If the rebirth is not there, and then you do what you like the dog's lifestyle, it's fine, there's nothing wrong in it. But if the rebirth is there, then it's very dangerous. Because you are not prepared. Then you become like a small child. A small child does not see what is after 10 years, what is after 20 years. Small child will say that, Mom, please, today let me play, let me not go to school. Right? Because the child does not see what is after 10 years or what is after 20 years. And if the mother says yes, tomorrow also the child will say the same thing. So the child could not see what is beyond. Mother sees beyond. So therefore the mother will somehow make the child go to school. Because the mother could see the beyond. Likewise, if we don't think about the future, whether or not there's a future in the first place, if we don't explore that, we become like small children. If the mother listens to the child and let the child play all the time, then as the child grows older, the child will be criticizing the mother. Child will be blaming mother. That when I was a child, she did not send me to school. Right? Because then she could see the future. That is too late. Likewise, it is worthwhile for us to explore whether or not there is the rebirth. Explore that. That the dogs cannot do. That's the human being can do. If you find that there's rebirth, then you will prepare. If the child knows that there is something which is after 5 years, after 10 years, then the child will go to school, will value the school. Likewise, only if you realize that there's rebirth, and through analysis, if you see that rebirth is really non-existent, then that's fine, that's a different story. At least we have to give an attempt to see whether there's rebirth. If there is, it's very scary. You're not preparing at all. Like a small child, not preparing at all for after 5 years old, or after 5 years or 10 years, not preparing at all. So this is where we have to explore. So the Pramanavartika text, there is a text written by Acharya Dharmakirti, one Indian master, who talks about this rebirth all rationally, through pure rationally, this is written. So this is what we have to use our special brain, special intelligence, which human beings have, and particularly the bright human beings have. They have to use this to explore what the dogs cannot explore. I said it, and then I told him that, in fact, I am in the course of writing a book about the paradox of brain and the mind. He said that I was the first person to read your book. Okay, what I'm saying is that this is a very important discussion about the rebirth thing. And this is something that of course, this book, Pramanavartika, this is the best book. There are so many traditions who believe in rebirth. Almost all the Hindu traditions, Jainism, Buddhism, except for Charvaka. Nowadays even Charvaka is not there. Right? Almost all the Indian classical, the philosophical traditions, they believe in rebirth. So, when these questions come, how do we know that there's rebirth? Then all these traditions have to give answers. Give the answers. Logically, rationally, should give the answers. So, of the books thus far available, what I would say is that this is the best book available on this earth pertaining to the rebirth. This book, Pramanavartika, is the best book on this earth. I cannot speak about the best book in this universe. There are so many world systems which I don't know. But in this world, this is the best book. Since 7th century AD till today, this is the best book about the rebirth. Okay. Where are we? Reference 34? Okay. Compassion as the cause arises through familiarization. Then the question arises, for how long should we familiarize? Oh, it can be. We might have to familiarize in some cases like few lifetimes. How do you know that there are few lifetimes? There's a reincarnation. Reference number 33. Second, rejecting the qualm that doubts the existence of great compassion has two parts. One, rejecting the great compassion cannot be trained over many lifetimes, because how do you know that there are many lifetimes? Number two, rejecting the position that compassion cannot progress infinitely despite training in it for many lives. Okay. So that the second qualm is, even if you practice compassion for so long, you cannot reach to the level of great compassion. For example, say the Olympic competition. In the Olympic competition, say the high jumpers, or let's say high jumpers. High jumpers, they have to practice every day, right? Oh, do you know what is high jumpers? Those people, okay. So high jumpers, they have to practice every day. So anyone who knows what is the world record? High jump? What's the world record? Anyone? Not interested in sports. That's strange. Which one? High jump, what is the world record? What's the highest? Huh? Huh? 4. 2 meters. Okay, 2.4. Let's say 2.4 meters. Let's say. Okay, let's say 2.4. So the person can jump 2.4, right? 2.4 meters. Person can jump that. And the Olympic is happening like 2 months later. And then the person practices. Then can the person jump to 2.5, 2.6, 5, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like this? No. However much the person practices, cannot jump like 3 or 4. You're getting it? Likewise, however much you may practice compassion, it will not reach to the level of great compassion. This is what the opponents are saying. Does it make sense? Does it make sense? You're afraid to say no. You're afraid to say yes. Because this is the opponent's view. And it's very sensible. Right? Even if you practice high jump, even if you're the world record holder of the high jump, and which is like, let's say, 2.4 meters, you practice. As you practice more, then you can jump higher. Eventually you can jump like 1 kilometer. No, impossible. Not at all impossible. Likewise, the opponents are saying that if this is not possible, you practice compassion, you will never reach to the level of the 1 kilometer compassion. You will never reach to the level of great compassion, right? So, 2 cons. One is, compassion cannot be practiced for so many lifetimes. Why? Because who knows there's so many lifetimes? How do you know that? 1. Number 2, even if you practice it for so many lifetimes, it cannot reach to the level of level of great compassion, because it is like jumping like a high jumper. You cannot reach to the level of jumping 1 kilometer high. Okay. How powerful is these debates? Hey, how powerful are these debates? Very powerful debates? Yes, very powerful. What answer do we have? If you think so, then you should give the answers. Okay. Tell me, what answers do you have? Say, how do you know that there's rebirth? How do you know that there's many lifetimes to practice compassion for many lifetimes? How do you know that there's many lifetimes? Anyone? If you think that this is so? Okay, let us listen. Let us listen. Yes? How do you know that there are many lifetimes?
I've been reading like books collected by the Western scientists, stories
something?
about people who have reincarnated.
What is his name? Stephen something, right?
Yeah, Stephen.
Ian Stevenson, right? Ian Stevenson. So he said something. Okay. So you believe in him? Okay. Okay, anyone else? Because when I said these questions are very powerful, only one or two people said yes. Otherwise, they give the impression because you are citing, you are following Acharya Dharmakirti. But it's a big question, right? It's so-so. So if it's so-so, you have to give the answer. Hey, what answers do you have to say that there's rebirth? Anyone? Okay, here. Pavanila?
I'm not sure if it fits within the realms of logic, but from personal experience, I say I cannot think my life is an accident. There has to be a purpose, and I feel it intuitively.
Okay, there's no reason.
There's no...
Okay, what reason do you have? Hey, anybody? If you think that this question is so-so. Anybody?
Can I say like personal experience?
Yes.
My reincarnated Lama who can recognize me. Something.
Okay. Reincarnated Lama is very complicated. Okay. Reincarnated Lama is very complicated. Anyway, I don't touch these areas. Reincarnation, so meaning tulkus, I don't touch this area. Right? They don't touch it. I don't touch this area. Don't ask me why not. Right? Okay. Kim?
Okay, to find out whether we have future lives, we have to, we can analyze in a way where we analyze whether we have past lives. We have a continuity of consciousness. So our consciousness now is dependent on the previous consciousness, and if you trace back, it's for previous. So in a sense, there's a past life. So if you can prove there's past life, then it should work for the fact that...
Okay, the past life is good enough. Let's say, what Kim is saying is that we have the consciousness, and consciousness is a stream. So the first moment of consciousness, it also came from previous consciousness. That is the previous life. Do you know what the current neuroscientists are saying? Let us not forget it. So these are the areas that we need to bring them. Neuroscience, for example, Eric Kandel, a world-renowned neuroscientist, a Nobel laureate in physiology. Eric Kandel in 2004. 2004, he's a Nobel laureate in physiology. 2004. His book, In Search of Memory. It's a beautiful book. In Search of Memory. There in the opening passage, what he said is that today, two hypotheses of the neuroscientists. One, there's no mind, it's only the brain. Hypothesis one. Hypothesis two, mind is there, but it's the emergent property of the brain. When the brain dies, the mind disappears. It has nothing to do with the previous life. This is what he said. You're getting it? So we have to know all these points. These are not said by just ordinary person, said by the thinkers. So what did they say? According to current neuroscientists, two hypotheses. One hypothesis is there's no mind in the first place. It's just the brain. Number two hypothesis is more sympathetic. There is mind, but the derivative or the emergent property of the brain. When the brain dies, the mind disappears. Right? The second hypothesis was actually already proposed since the time of Acharya Dharmakirti. It's already there, you can see it. It's already there. And to the extent they give beautiful examples. For example, the wall and the wall murals. Wall murals, meaning the wall paintings. When you demolish the wall, painting automatically disappears. When the brain dies, the mind automatically disappears. Right? Likewise, the alcohol. Likewise, the flame and the light rays of the flame. When the flame dies, all the light rays disappear. Right? These are the examples given by the hedonists. Hedonists who do not believe in rebirth at the time of Acharya Dharmakirti. So all these will be mentioned in this book. Okay, so look, this is a very serious discussion. So let's go further. Reference number 34, page 14, the last line, reference number 34. First, rejecting the great compassion cannot be trained over many lives, has 6 parts. Okay, very important. What do you call it? Outlines. Outlines. All these outlines I took from Ketu Rinpoche's commentary. Okay. So, rejecting the great compassion cannot be trained over many lifetimes, simply because there's no life. There's no the future, the past and the future lives. This is what they are saying. So, it has 6 points. 1, delineating the reason for the existence of former and the later lives. So, Acharya Dharmakirti is going to give reasons that the former and the later lives, they are possible. Number 2, rejecting the reasons which support that the last moment of mind does not connect to the sequentially akin mind of the next life, which means a person is dying, at the last moment of the mind of this person, opponents who don't believe in rebirth, they say that this last moment of the mind will not connect to the next mind. So, Acharya Dharmakirti is going to reject that. Number 3, individually rejecting the 3 modes of dependency of the mental, consciousness, and body. So those who reject rebirth, what they say is that the mind is nothing, but the mind is just a derivative of the body. The body dies, the mind finishes. So they give 3 points. Each of these 3 points are going to be rejected. Number 4, explaining the causes for the ordinary beings to connect to the next birth. So, tell me, if you believe in rebirth, if there's rebirth, we will start from a clean slate. If there's rebirth, then do you think that all who are alive now at the time of death, as one dies, one's going to have rebirth? If there's rebirth, is it necessary that anybody who dies will have rebirth? Yes, no? Yes. Okay, this is a question asked to the Buddha. And this question asked to the Buddha, 2 questions. 1, anybody who's born will be followed by death? The Buddha said, yes. Anybody who's born should necessarily die. Second question, anybody who died will be born? The Buddha said, not necessary. Who? The Arhats. Arhats, they don't take rebirth. They don't take rebirth. They are free from rebirth. Means coming back into samsara. They will not come back to samsara anymore. They are already free from samsara. Okay. Number 4, explaining the causes for the ordinary beings. Then why the Arhats? Arhats, they don't take rebirth, but the ordinary beings, when they die, they have to take rebirth. What are the factors? What are the factors which make the ordinary beings to take rebirth? Number 5, explaining the causes, the factors for the ordinary beings to connect to the next birth. Number 5, general rejection of dependency of the mental consciousness only on the body. So the advocates of who reject the rebirth, they say that the mind is purely dependent on the body. So Acharya Dharmakirti is rejecting that. Number 6, rejecting the objections to the last moment of the mind to connect to the sequentially akin mind of the next life. Okay, Acharya Dharmakirti says mind of the last moment of the ordinary person is going to connect to the next birth. So Acharya Dharmakirti gives reasons. Then this reason is rejected by the opponents. So this rejection was further rejected by Acharya Dharmakirti. Right? It says, rejecting the objections. Opponents objected what the reasons which Acharya Dharmakirti gave, that ordinary beings, the last moment of the mind will connect to the next mind. So this objected by the opponents, and Acharya Dharmakirti rejected these objections. Okay. Reference number 35. First, delineating the reasons for the existence of form and the later lives. Okay, Acharya Dharmakirti. So what reasons does Acharya Dharmakirti give to explain that there is rebirth? Okay, this is important. In this connection, before we go into this, it would be good for us to have this background. The background is, if there is a rebirth. Okay, let us not begin by saying that there is rebirth. Let's not begin from there. Let us begin from if there is rebirth. Let us not begin from there is no rebirth. Right? There is also belief. Let's say if there is rebirth. If there is rebirth, then this person who dies will take birth, come back again. If there is rebirth. So this person dies, meaning this person has a body and a mind, yes? This person is nothing other than body and mind. And the body is going to be buried or cremated or whatever. The body, 100% the body will not travel to the next life. That's for sure. If there is a rebirth, and if something travels from one life to the other, it is the mind. You're getting it? Okay, we have to go step by step. The first step is, if there is a rebirth, one that takes rebirth should be the mind, not the body. Because the body is going to be left behind. If there is something which travels, it should be the mind. This is step number 1. What is the next step? The next step is, how do you know there's a mind which travels to the next birth? How do you know that this mind and the brain, these are not one? How do you know that? This is the next question. So the second question takes us to understand that the brain, to explore, not understand, to explore that the mind, if there's rebirth, the mind wishes to travel to the next life. This mind and the brain, these two are not one. How? Again, how these two are not one? So for that matter, we have to, first of all, explore how the mind and the brain, these two are two distinct entities. This is what we have to explore. Number 1. This is step number 2. But this is the major exercise. We have to explore how the mind is distinct from the brain. Whether or not the mind is distinct from the brain. This would be the correct question. Whether or not the mind is distinct from the brain. So what Eric Kandel said in his book, that the two hypotheses of the current neuroscientists, that there's no mind, it's just a brain. You're getting it? It's just a brain. Okay, so this, the mind and the brain, if there's no mind, it's just a brain, finished, there's no discussion. But we have to explore whether the mind and brain, these two are one, or these two are distinct. This is what we need to explore. Okay, with this I'd like to share one thing with you, which is so important. I was in a university. It's not just a story, it's a real thing, what happened. But I'm not going to mention which university. Why? Yes, okay. I'm not going to mention the university, right? Okay. So the HOD of the Buddhist department in that university, HOD of the Buddhist department. So my friend took me there. I met the HOD of the Buddhist department of that university. And he is a monk. And we had a discussion. Then he invites, the department invites scholars from outside, Buddhist scholars from outside, and to talk about the mind, to talk about, Buddhist philosophy, whatever. Then I said, and then I also came to know that there is, in this department, there is the brain research program. In this department, Buddhist studies department, this is something so unique. Within the Buddhist studies department, there is a brain research program there. Because in Buddhism, we talk about, the compassion and so forth, to do this research about compassion and so forth. There's also a neuroscience department, small neuroscience department. Neuroscience is also there. Then I met with a neuroscientist. Okay, neuroscientist, he may not, it's up to the individual. Then I met the HODs separately. Then I told him that, okay, if you, it's amazing that your department has the neuroscience research program also. It's very good. And it would be good if you can, somehow talk about the emptiness. With the neuroscientists, if there's a possibility by which they can do some kind of research on the brain to see what happens to the brain when somebody's meditating on emptiness. Then he said, emptiness is a very abstract phenomena. He's not positive. Very pessimistic. Not positive. It's a very abstract phenomena. Okay, that is rejected. Then the next, I said that it'd be good if you could also talk about how the brain and mind, whether these two are one or different. He said, no. The mind is a very abstract phenomena. He's a Buddhist and Buddhist monk, practitioner. And he said that it's a very abstract phenomena, mind. We cannot really explain. Nobody can explain what a mind is. I was a little taken aback. Oh. And then I told him, okay, this is not difficult. To say that the mind is different from the brain is not really difficult. Then I started explaining how the mind is different from the brain. I said it, and he did not give any comment. He did not say any. He just listened, and he did not say anything. Then after the talk, after our conversation, then we left. And then he came to see me off. Then he said something very interesting. The last moment when I was about to separate from him, he said that today I heard something which I never heard before. What is that? How the mind is different from the brain. This is something which is not really discussed so commonly, unfortunately. And there was also one Buddhist scholar, a great acclaimed Buddhist scholar, and recently I met him in Israel. One time I met him, I think 15 years ago. 15 years ago, I met him in a small meeting of the scholars. Then I talked about the brain and mind relationship. He said that nobody can prove that there is a mind which is different from the brain. He said it. He's a Buddhist scholar, a very good Buddhist scholar. He said, I was again taken aback. I said, how do you know that nobody can prove that there's a mind different from the brain? Because there's no published papers. He very confident said it. Right? So if this is missing, if this part is missing, where the mind is different from the brain, if this part is missing, then the whole foundation of Buddhism is lost, is defeated. So therefore, this topic becomes a very important topic, extremely important topic. Okay. So it says, reference number 35. First, delineating the reasons for the existence of former and later lives. For that matter, first thing that we need to do is what? If there is a rebirth, we don't begin by saying there is rebirth. We don't begin by saying there is no rebirth. We begin by saying if there is rebirth. If there is rebirth, it is the mind which should travel from the one life to the next life. Number one. Number two, if there is a mind which travels from one life to the next life, how do we know that there is a mind which is different from the brain? Because the brain does not travel to the next life. If the brain and the mind, these two are one, when the brain dies, the mind disappears. So how can you say that to say the mind travels from one life to the next life, the minimum thing that you have to do is that you have to prove, you have to convince, you should have the conviction that the mind is different from the brain. The brain dies, the mind travels. This is the very important point to keep in mind. Okay, we'll stop here. Wow, everybody is so serious. What happened? Huh?
So the mind being different from the brain, is it the concept you need to...
Mike.
The concept of mind being separate from the brain, is it more discussed in Tibetan Buddhism, or it's not so discussed in other branches of Buddhism?
Okay. This is discussed in Acharya Dharmakirti's text in India. From there, it has been discussed. Yeah. So the best thing would be to explore, say, go to the Theravada tradition and go to the very standard Theravada monasteries and scholars and discuss with them what they have to say. Check. Then go to the, let's say, the Chinese tradition, Chinese scholars. In fact, the Chinese Buddhism, in Chinese Buddhism, say that I was so fascinated to meet particularly one Chinese scholar, proper Chinese, following the Chinese Buddhism, one Chinese scholar in a conference many years ago in India. And she presented concept on emptiness. Of all these presenters on emptiness from the Chinese tradition and also from the Buddhist tradition, the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, from my observation, I was so impressed by this lady's presentation. She made she's very sharp, very brilliant presentation was made. Then I realized, wow, even in Chinese Buddhism, the concept of emptiness is so alive, so fresh. So not just, okay, emptiness, everything's illusion-like. How illusion-like? No reason, no, it's not like that. She presented so beautifully. I was so impressed. So likewise, we can go to meet with the Chinese scholars, real good Chinese scholars following the Chinese Buddhism, and see whether they discuss on this area. And then in the Tibetan Buddhism, of course, this book is a very important book. Very important book is being discussed. Okay, yes.
Can you remember the name? I'll be trying.
Okay, Brother Peck.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Okay. Geshe mentioned that about body and mind. Yeah, what happened to when a person dies, body and mind. Of course, we know this from our studies in Pramanavartika and our various Tibetan class. But innately, the feeling innately is very. There's a sense of soul. The soul that possess this body, the sense of self, soul, that's the one that goes to the next life.
Okay, this is again an extremely important discussion. Say, there's a soul which travels to the next life. Or there's a soul which travels to the heaven or hell or whatever. There's a soul which travels. Okay, the next question, what is this soul? Oh no, such a soul doesn't exist. No, don't say like this. Don't reject things very easily. What is this soul? So what I personally would say, okay, let me not mix the standard position and my personal position, right? So these questions, they did not really evolve in those days. In those days, for example, the concept of the Atman, concept of the soul like Atman. Soul is an English word. Soul like Atman, presented in many of the classical Indian traditions, including Jainism, Vedanta, Samkhya, Vaisheshik, Mimamsaka. All these traditions, they believe in such a concept of a soul. They call it consciousness. They borrowed the English word consciousness. Conscious means that self, which is what is equivalent to the the soul in the Judeo-Christian the belief. Okay, now, so that self, well characterized, that self so well defined, the self which is characterized with three attributes: permanent, unitary, and independent. So well defined. So this is the beauty of the classical Indian traditions, because they debate with each other. They will ask you, what is this self? Is it permanent or not? Then you have to say something. Not just say there's a self, there's a soul traveling. What is this soul? Is it permanent, impermanent? You have to say either permanent, impermanent. It becomes very clear. Is the unitary or multiple? Is this independent or the dependent? All these questions are put forth, and then they have to articulate. And so they very well present the concept of the soul as permanent, unitary, and independent. This is the characteristic of what they call as the Atma, or the self, or the consciousness, or the soul. One. Whereas in the Judeo-Christian background, there, okay, I don't want to go too much into politics. So there, discussions were happening. Mostly discussions were happening, say, among the Christian philosophers, Christian theologians. Later. And whereas somebody who does not believe in such a soul, there was no tradition there. So there's no competition. Because there's no competition there, they don't have to articulate it. So if you ask the Christian theologians today, very good philosophers and the Christian theologians, this soul that you believe in, is it permanent, unitary, independent? They will say that we don't really they talk about these areas, right? Because there's no competition there. There's no competitor in terms of there's no debater in those. But everybody believes in the same concept. Say the God, heaven, then the hell, and then everybody just agree, and within their tradition debate, like the debates happening within the Buddhist, the monasteries, Sera, Debung, and then they debate amongst themselves, right, with some basic principles which they all believe in common. Likewise, this is what is. Whereas in India, in those days, not today, in those days, all the opposing belief systems came into being. Because they're opposing belief systems, they tend to debate with each other. One debating, you should articulate what you're saying. So therefore, it becomes very crystal clear as to what they mean by soul, what they mean by Atma, what they mean by the self or the consciousness. Okay, with this, then the question is, my take is that soul, does it exist or not? If you ask this question, what I would say is that the soul, the way the ordinary people believe, the soul, the way the theologians believe, these two are very different. Where the ordinary people believe is the self, the conventional self. When I die, I will leave this body and will take birth somewhere. This is a conventional self. If this is how one understands the soul, such a soul exists. There's nothing wrong in it. Whereas the soul which is being rejected by the Buddhist philosophers is not the soul accepted by the ordinary, say, Hindus, ordinary Muslims, ordinary Jains, Jews, and so forth. The soul precisely accepted by the theologians who articulated these concepts. For sure, I would say that the original person who came up with the concept of the self, such a concept of the Atma, whatever, I don't think that person really articulated self to be permanent, unitary, independent. This is all later development because of the competition, debates from the competitors, the philosophers who don't believe your philosophy. So this is how later developed, becomes so concretized. Okay, so my personal view is that the soul, the way, if somebody asks me whether or not the soul exists, I would say that soul, the way it is understood by the ordinary people, it exists. The soul, the way it is articulated by the theologians, they don't exist. The way they articulated by the theologians is the permanent, unitary, independent self. Such a soul doesn't exist. Where the ordinary people, how they believe that a soul moves from one life to the next life. I mean, perfect. Soul which moves from this life to the heaven, earth, wherever. But the heaven and earth, they are not. This is a different matter. But what moves, that exists. If this is how one understands the soul, that exists. So we should be what? A good listener. Right? The referent. Now it becomes easy for you. Soul is the label soul. Don't be too harsh on this label. Right? What's the referent? Look for the referent. Ordinary people's referent of this label and the theologian's referent of this label is very different. I'm lucky I can speak very easily now because this is what you've learned already from Acharya Dharmakirti, this text. Right? That's easy. Okay, so if the soul exists or not, ordinary people, they believe that soul moves. Yes, that's perfect. There's nothing wrong in it. Right? There's nothing wrong. It moves. Perfect. Such soul exists. Such soul travels. We have to think of the referent, not just stick to the label. Okay, any more questions? Okay, we'll stop here.